Because now, more than ever, we must show discipline, tolerance, and production to build a strong and better nation. I say that is the main foundation. So come, let us work hand in hand, because this is our land. Come, my brother, come, my sister, and let us build a nation together. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Remember, the key to success is working hard. For our country, we must have regard. Forget all your differences, let we start to build. And onward to progress we surely will. Because now, more than ever, we must show discipline, tolerance, and production to build a strong and better nation. I say that is the main foundation. So come, let us work hand in hand.
Yes, what we seek to do is to build a better foundation for our children and children. Welcome to the Dynamic Hour. Again, another opportunity that you and I have to talk, to converse. I want to encourage those on Facebook and YouTube to please share the live. Sharing is caring. And those on radio, Wild 106.3 FM out there in New York, and Vibes 101.3 FM and 106.3 FM here in Grenada, Carriacou and Petit Martinique, please tell your neighbor, tell your friend where they can get the program and what time. 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. during the morning and 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. during the nighttime. Well, except on Fridays. I want to start off this morning by saying there are people who will talk and there are people who will act. And in some instances, they don't talk a lot. So we saw the NNP during the last 20-something years talking about the poor and the vulnerable. Every time they open their mouths, they would mention the poor and the vulnerable, the poor and the vulnerable. But what have they done for the poor and the vulnerable over the many years? And then you have the NDC. They don't talk much about the poor and the vulnerable, but they act, they work diligently to get these people out of poverty so that they can take care of themselves, take care of their families, so that they can be independent of some constituency office or some politician. That's the difference. Some people, they talk and they give you the impression that they love you, that they want good for you. And there are some people who don't talk a lot, but they actually will do good for you. They would turn your life around. They will transform your life positively. Let us look at it because it is important. We heard Keith Mitchell, who is the leader of the New National Party. We heard him on umpteen occasions speaking about the poor and the vulnerable, the poor and the vulnerable.
So all sectors You have particularly the poor and the vulnerable, although we're not supposed to talk about the poor and the vulnerable, because this government says the NNP love to talk about poor and vulnerable because we like to keep people poor. You know, all the road work and things that we do is about keeping people poor. So do nothing for them.
Right. So guiltiness. I wish I had that song, Guiltiness on their conscience. But they're saying the poor and the vulnerable, but they don't want us to talk about the poor and the vulnerable. All right? Because people say when we talk about the poor and the vulnerable because we want to keep them poor. What's to that effect? But guiltiness on his conscience. The NNP over the many years kept a lot of people in this country poor, in my belief. But he mentioned road work. But road work existed since under Gary, Travel, and under the first NNP, under the NDC, under the first NDC. And these things are not new. All right? They are not new. But the NNP, under the leadership of Keith Mitchell, made a lot of people in this country believe that they indeed care about these people. But that's not the case. That is not the case, because we had more latrine pits existing under NNP than anybody else. We had more unemployment left, right, and center under NNP than nearly all the other regimes. We have, more people going for poor relief assistance than any time in the history of Grenada. So I am saying they talk, and he's right. The NNP talk about the poor and the vulnerable, but they don't really do anything for the poor and the vulnerable. But the NDC, they don't talk about the poor and the vulnerable as much as the NNP used to, but they are doing more. The NDC is doing more for the poor and the vulnerable than the NNP. Check it out. The WASH program. The WASH program, folks, is a very good example of a caring government who wants to see the young man, the young woman using a bathroom and toilet facility and giving them, in the process, their dignity back. So no longer do they have to use a latrine pit as a toilet or an exposed bathroom with some galvanized sheets, around it, where people can actually look at you, see you naked. You're giving these people back their dignity. That is what this program did for a lot of people in the country. And here we speaking about the pilot community. 32 families received indoor bathroom and toilet facilities. Some people trivialize this. The mainstream media, they're not covering it. They're not talking about it. And a lot of people not even mentioning it or talking about it. But you have a government who cares about the dignity of that human being, that family. So all the NNP was talking about the poor and the vulnerable, ask them how many toilet and bathroom facilities you built over the 20-something years for your people or the Grenadian people. Those who still have pit latrines and outdoor bathrooms. This is a very important question, because they talk about the poor and the vulnerable and that they care about the poor and the vulnerable. But what did NNP really do over the 20-something years for the poor and the vulnerable? The NDC, within 20 months, they were able to construct 32 indoor bathroom and toilet facilities for our Grenadian brothers and sisters who are using toilet pit, latrine pit, outdoor bathrooms. What they have done is to give these people back their humanity, their dignity, their life. Because so it's supposed to be, you know. You're supposed to have that kind of facility in your home. But you have the NNP talking about the poor and the vulnerable, and you have the NDC working hard to take them out of being poor, take them out of being vulnerable, and bringing them to that place where they're independent, where they can take care of themselves and their families.
The Water Sanitation and Hygiene Program, also known as WASH, will soon be implemented in communities in St. Andrew and the St. George South area. More details in this Abigail McIntyre report.
As the pilot program nears its conclusion in the community of Belle Isle, St. David, Prime Minister and Parliamentary Representative, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, says the Water Sanitation and Hygiene WASH project has achieved success and is poised for adoption in other villages. Conducting a comprehensive walkthrough of Belle Isle on Thursday, Prime Minister Mitchell showcased the tangible impact of the WASH program on the ground. Accompanying Prime Minister Mitchell on the visit were Honorable Andy Williams, Honorable David Andrew, Honorable Lennox Andrews, Tessa Sincere, project volunteers, contractors, and prospective investors. WASH stands as a flagship initiative of the Prime Minister, aligning with his vision for a more prosperous Grenada, where all citizens reap the benefits of national development. During the pilot phase of the project, 32 families received newly constructed bathrooms and indoor toilets, complete with modern amenities such as tilings, sinks, faucets, toilets, and light fixtures. Additionally, many households benefited from the installation of septic tanks and suckaway facilities. Approximately 1 million EC dollars, primarily sourced from investments and donations, were invested in the project.
The individual sort of cost of doing a bathroom and toilet is around 27,000 EC. Some instances it's less than that because some people have started on their own. But I want to point out we've gotten significant. So essentially for this project we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because if you round it up to 30,000 by 32, that's almost 3 trees are 9. That's almost $1 million. But we also have had significant contributions from the business community. For example, Ramdani's brought in the toilets for us at cost price, so they didn't charge any markups. We've had a donor from Trinidad who's donated a lot of the fixtures and fittings and so on. Individuals have been donating toilets, making contributions. We got a $3,000 contribution. As you can see, Mr. Nicholas is here from Radisson, who wants to partner with us in helping support. So we really want to call on the business community in particular, because most of these people work in some business in Grenada one way or the other, and we want to make sure that when they come back from working for you, that they come into an environment where they have water, where they have an indoor bathroom, indoor toilet, and they don't have to go out in the inclement weather just to do basic physiological needs. So we really want to partner with the business community. This really is an NGO, government, business community initiative. It's not just an initiative about the government, because it's for the community.
While plans are on the way to replicate the program in other constituencies, Prime Minister Mitchell has already identified communities within his constituency for implementation later this year.
We've already identified for St. David's 3 other communities that we want to tackle this year. We want to do Barrett, we want to do Corinth, and then we want to do Vincent's. And the reason we're going in that order is because, as you would see, to do this it requires significant logistics. Large amounts of material have to be brought in, stored, looked after. So we're trying to use areas where we've either renovated or reconstructed community centres to almost immediately go there. So as you saw in Belle Isle, we had a lot of the tiles, the cement, the tin sets stored at the community centre. So when we go to Barrett, the community centre there is completed. So the idea we'll use the community centre as a logistics operational base and then do Barrett. Current community centre is almost finished. In fact, one of the contractors who's working here on the WASH program is finishing up there. Then we could go to some of the specific pockets in Corinth. Vincent's Community Centre is under construction. Once that's finished, we should be able to get to Vincent's. So that's the plan for St. David, but the idea is we expect to start in St. Andrew, places like Telescope and so on. We really want to go to the communities that are oftentimes ignored or no attention is paid to them, and really go to them and start with them first. So the idea here is that each of the MPs will pick the villages in their constituencies that they think is most needing, this service, and then we'll go in there and support.
9 contractors were employed under the project, each empowered to assemble their own workforce from the local community. Linton Murray, one of the contractors, expressed profound satisfaction in witnessing the impact of the project in the community.
That's the best thing I've happened to Grenada in years. Take out everybody from pit latrine and put them in a toilet, no man. Yeah. That's a good thing. A good incentive.
Both Honorable Lennox Andrew and Honorable David Andrew were impressed by the work done in Belle Isle and anticipates replicating the initiative in their constituencies.
There's an element of voluntarism in that the contractors contribute some of it freely, the community gets involved, it builds community spirit, persons take responsibility for their own bathrooms by contributing some part and assisting in the other persons. Now that kind of community care is something we want to nurture, we want to rebuild, and so this program provides the ideal opportunity for it. Additionally, I mean, you can see there's a lot of visible transformation in some of the homes. When you see the quality of the bathrooms, in wall, nicely tiled, well outfitted, contrary to in some cases to what exists, but it lifts the profile of the homes, and that must do well for the psyche of the citizens in this community benefiting from it. And so I want to commend the government, commend the MP for this area and the Prime Minister for his vision.
Having explained the concept under this WASH program, I think it's something that can be easily replicated in other communities, in other constituencies, because we do have very much similar situations in certain aspects and certain parts of the community of the constituency of Southwest.
Right. So again, it will be replicated. They will be moving to other villages, other constituencies to do the same thing, because the hope is to have at least 90-something% of the latrine pit eradicated and have indoor bathroom and the toilet facilities with, pipe-borne water and so on. That's the whole idea. It's a mammoth task because they're looking at 2027 in the next 3 years or so. So it's a lot of work that they have to put in, a lot of resources. But I think it is a good thing to lift the standard of our people. During the build-up to the last election, the NNP ran and did 1 or 2 bathrooms, not even putting the toilet bowl, not even tiling the bathrooms, not even putting sinks, not even putting the, all the faucets, all the amenities, all the things that goes with a modern bathroom. They gave their boys a liquor bly to go and build 1 or 2 of those things. But really and truly, if you go and you look at it today, you wonder, what did they really do? And I think it's something that the government should also undertake, to go back to the 10 or the 15 or the 20 that the NNP built during their time. 23 years in office. That's if they actually constructed 23 bathroom and toilet facilities for people. But if they did, many people gave me the account that no tiling, no toilet bowl, no sink, no this, no that in that particular facility. Serious plumbing issues and so on under the NNP, right? Because it was just an election thing, right? A reason to get votes, in my belief. But here you have the NDC not looking at your politics, because there are people there who received bathroom and the toilet facilities, and they're NNP supporters. So the NDC is not looking at your politics. They're looking at your need and the needs of your family members. Because remember, the entire household will be impacted by that. You see? So important. And look at the quality of bathroom and toilet facility provided to these people. Just look at it. It's modern. It's well done, meaning that they complete the entire thing. They're not doing no piecemeal thing. But this is a very good example of a caring government, one who wants to take you from poverty to prosperity, one who wants to take you from where you are to a better place, you and your family. So that is why I started the program this morning or earlier by saying, one, the NNP talks about poor and vulnerable over and over and over, giving you the impression that they care. And the NDC, they don't talk much, but they do a lot to help the people who are poor and vulnerable to come out of poverty, to better their lives and living standard. So you have the WASH program, typical example. The NDC in 20 months, 32 families got a bathroom and toilet facility, indoor bathroom and toilet facility, a modern bathroom and toilet facility, and running water. The NDC also started the JUMP program. You're not hearing mainstream media featuring it or talking about it. But the JUMP program gives access to households without internet. So they give them access to internet and a device, a laptop or a tablet, a device, so that they can access the internet and training to use the device to access the internet. And the majority of people who will be impacted by that will be the poor and the vulnerable. The people who cannot afford it, they will be provided that. That's a caring government. So there are so many things that the NDC did. They are doers, right? They did to improve the lives and living standard of the people that the NNP called the poor and the vulnerable, that they love so much, but they did nothing much for them. You see? You look at the free hot meal program. Again, it's the NDC doing the hot meal program, the free hot meal program in the schools. So that parent doesn't have to leave that child home or scratch her head or his head to get lunch for that child in a public school. It is provided for that child or the children. They can go to school without worrying where they would get something hot to eat or drink. The free hot meal program is geared to helping the students, the children from homes where they cannot provide for them a hot meal so that they can get an education. You think it's easy to be in a classroom concentrating or being able to concentrate and not knowing where you will get something to eat when lunchtime comes? It's not easy. So the NDC again is demonstrating that they care about the Grenadian people, about the children, about families. It's a caring government. So one will talk about poor and vulnerable, the NNP. They always out there talking about poor and vulnerable. But what have they done for the poor and the vulnerable?
But government must always have a focus on the poor and vulnerable. If you don't do that, then you're failing in your responsibility.
Right. So again, that's how the NNP operates. They talk about the poor and the vulnerable. They talk, but they don't do anything much to help these people. Here you have the NDC, 20 months, the WASH program, providing modern indoor bathroom and toilet facility for families. Here you have the NDC, 20 months, providing internet access, a device, and training in partnership with Flow for households without internet access. Here you have the NDC providing a hot meal, a free hot meal for the kids. When they go to school, they don't have to worry about where they're getting lunch from, something to eat, something to put in their stomach. They're getting it free from government. That's important. Then you have the free textbook program. The NDC who introduced the free textbook program, not the NNP. The NNP don't care about education because the NNP knows if they educate these poor people or they educate people, then they would no longer support them because they would see the light. They would understand how the NNP has been preying, that's P-R-E-Y, on their vulnerability, on their condition, taking advantage of them, in my belief. So the NDC provided the free textbook program, providing free textbook or free textbooks, right, for the kids. And then you have the free tuition program, where no longer does a parent, have to worry, stress out, do all kind of things to get that kind of money, $810, to send their child to TAMCC, the lone college on island, or to NULO to learn carpentry, to learn masonry, to learn electrical engineering, to learn to cook, to learn to sew, to learn to, to do plumbing or construction, whatever. You understand the point? Or something else. That government is paying for that so they can go to school without even worrying. And that money could be used to pay bus, to buy things to eat, you understand the point? So the government is serious about helping these people to come out of poverty. And the main vehicle to get anyone out of poverty is education. Education. The NDC did not stop there, with all these different programs. They only recently announced the minimum wage order. So these people who were working for very little, taken advantage of because they call them the poor and the vulnerable, and they work for very, very little. What the NDC did is to say, nah, we're going to adjust their wages to make them get more at the end of the month, or at the end of the fortnight, or at the end of the week, or at the end of the day. So many of these people who were working for very little, they are now getting $1,200 or more. Look at the security officers. Under the NNP, they were getting $4 an hour. And they would work for 10 hours, 12 hours for $4. And they would go home with $40 or $48. Under the NNP, for 23 years and a half, $4 an hour. The NDC came into power, and within no time, they brought that to $9.25 per hour. Because remember, it was the first NDC who doubled the thing from $4 to $8. This NDC brought it to almost $10, $9.25 per hour. Because the NDC wants better wages for our people. And the majority of people who were given very small salaries or paid very small salaries were people who were poor and vulnerable, or considered, quote unquote, poor and vulnerable. They were taken advantage of. The NDC came and they changed all of that. The NDC knows that there are people who will look to government for money to make ends meet. So the SEED program, where they provide a certain amount of money every month for the people in need, the NDC increased that. The NDC said, okay, we will increase the SEED money at $300. We're going to increase it to $500. Once you're 65 years and older, or if you have a disability, or if you have a mental disorder, you're challenged mentally. So you're not giving everybody. If you're young and you're able-bodied and you're this and you're that, you have to transition from the program. You have to find your way. So you're still getting the $300. But if you're 65 years and older, you will get 500 every month. If you have a disability, you will get 500 every month. If you are mentally challenged, you will get 500 every month. This is a caring government. They did not stop there, The Imanis that the NNP used to boast and brag and talk about. And they loved the Imani and they had these people working for nothing. They say they're training, but training what? They had them working for nothing or very little. The NDC came in 20 months, and they moved that $700 to $1,200. So they are now working for $1,200. So if you want to say work/train for $1,200. And many of these people come from simple homes. The NDC does not only talk, the NDC act, they do. But the NNP, they talk because they know that people tend to fall for old talk, for brango, for talk. You meet a woman and there's a guy who could speak and he's good with words, sweet talk, lie. He will quicker get that woman to fall for him than a decent gentleman who may not have the gift of speech to articulate well, but he means well. He's decent, he's genuine, he's sober-minded. He's somebody that you could build something with, you could better yourself with. That person might be at a disadvantage, although that is the real person, the real deal. But they might quicker go for the sweet talker, the nice dresser, the guy who could lie for them until they discover. You see? And that happens everywhere around the world. Everywhere around the world. And that is a typical example. The guy who is decent, the guy who you can build a family with, build a home, take care of the family and that kind of stuff, industrious, working, committed, to family and so on, that guy is like the NDC. But a guy who could speak smooth and nice talk and mama guy you and lie for you, tell you that he has 5 vehicles and 5 houses and land and all kind of stuff, right? And I gave you a situation like that, some time back, where there was this guy who was working for this gentleman. It was a 3 or 4 story building. And the gentleman find that, traveling from very far to come to work. So he said to him, well, you could clean out the storeroom, right? The little thing right down in the back, in the bottom of the building. Clean that out and you could sleep there. Stay there for, instead of you have to spend all that money. You could stay there for as long as you work in. And the gentleman who owns the building went overseas, right? So he had a couple of vehicles in the yard. He had the big building. So he met this girl, right? And he said to her, well, the building is mine. She said, but the building is yours, okay. So what you down here? He said, well, I want the money. So I rent the first floor, I rent the second floor, and I rent the third floor, and I decided to go in the storeroom down here and crash in because I want the money. Then she said, well, who the vehicles in the yard for? She said, yes. He said, the vehicle is mine too. The 2 vehicles in the yard is mine. But she said, but you taking bus? She said, no. Well, he said he rent it out because he wanted money. He rent it out and so on. So he was able to get between her legs and, things start moving, right? Because she thought, well, by the man of money, your buildings and, he lied, sweet talker, sweet liar. Then she was a bit curious. She asked the neighbor, because once you're in an area, you start interacting and so on. She asked the neighbor, but who the house for? Then the neighbor said, well, the owner of the house overseas. The guy I see you with there, he just clean and scrub and clean the yard, the garden and the one clean all the thing around the yard for the man. You see? And then she discovered, so it dawned on her that it's what it is. Lie and more lies. That's the NNP, That's how the NNP operates. They've always operated so, the NNP administration. They lie their way to everything. Just lie, lie, lie. And they catching people. They catch the poor and the vulnerable for 23 years and a half, with their lies. But look at the NDC. The NDC came in and they paid gratuity and pension. Remember, there was a time they used to call public officers who were retiring. No, the guy is not no property manager. He was the cleaner and the gardener. All right, property manager songs too. No property manager. Trick, you see? Trudy. So, I'm saying here, there was a time when they used to call the people who were retiring from the public service as the walking poor, That's how they used to call them. They walking, but they're going right back into poverty under the NNP. NNP never wanted to engage anything about pension and gratuity and paying these people their money, They had to take to the streets. They were in the streets marching day in, day out, fighting for their money. And then the NNP came and they dock their salaries. They take money out of the salaries as a government. They dock their salaries. Yeah. Of course. That's what they did to them, They used to call them the walking poor. So they walk, and they retire straight back into poverty. Don't forget that, The NDC came and ended that. The NDC paid them their gratuity, paid them their pension, and every month they collecting their pension. And in some cases, they are collecting more money in pension than they used to collect as a salary on a monthly basis. I challenge anybody out there. There are people who are collecting now more money, right, than they used to collect when they were working. When you add the government pension and the NIS pension, when you put that together, they are collecting more than what they were working for. You see, both of them put together. They used to collect just the NIS, the like a pittance. But now they're collecting the government pension, the 66.66%, almost 70% of what they used to earn from government, right, as a salary, the highest emolument. And because they work for 30-something years, 40 years with government, they're collecting far more than 30% of the highest emolument from NIS. In some instances, 40, 45. I think the max is about 55%. So they're collecting far more in pension. So they're no longer the working poor. So the NDC cares about these people. And they're not just talking. They have demonstrated so in reality, in cash, by giving them their pension and their gratuity, and every month they collect that pension. The access to pipe-borne water under the, NNP had no vision, They had no vision. NDC is saying water is a human right. You have a right to clean drinking water. You understand me? Just as you have a right to freedom of expression, you have a right to clean drinking water. And NAWASA shouldn't be saying to you, well, you can't get water because your landlord didn't give you a letter saying to give you water. The landlord cannot control that. The water should be on your name, so you can pay for it on your name, not on the landlord's name. So the NDC decided we're going to change that. We're going to make sure that everyone who applies for water get it, even if they own the property or not. All right? That's a good thing because the water will be on their name. So they're giving them that, making sure that that is secured. The whole issue of land title for people who are on government lands, crown lands, the NDC is giving these people title to the land so that they can pass something on to the next generation. And the next generation, because they've been on the land for so long, without title, they cannot even get a loan or nothing to improve the living standard and condition. They might be working somewhere, but they can't build anything much there. You understand the point? That's significant. Then you have universal education. NDC introduced that, from pre-primary all the way up. You have to find all this money to pay schools. The NDC said, no, we're going to absorb that cost as a government. So all these different initiatives and things I just mentioned, these are things to get you out of poverty, to create for you a decent life, a good living standard and condition and everything like that, to improve you and your family. Not just talk, but the do. The doers at the NDC, they do. They get it done. That's the difference. NNP will talk about the poor and the vulnerable, the poor and the vulnerable, poor and the vulnerable. But here it is. The NDC is not stopping there, you know. You hear about Project 500, where they seek to build 500 Grenadian-style homes? That's coming. That's coming. They're not just talking. They're working on it. And that's important, you know. Because there are some people who cannot afford to build a home, start from scratch. But if they can get that from government, from the housing authority, right, at a reduced cost, come on. That's a biggie for people. Housing. Then you have schools. There are schools that the NDC is actually building, you know, from scratch, you know. Yes, they renovated some, they reconditioned some, you know, they did some work on them to upgrade it, to bring it on par. But there are new schools that they're actually building with modern facilities and so on. This is important because a person with money could afford to send a child to a private school. But a person without would have to rely on government schools, public schools. You understand the point? That's important, you know. Very, very important. I am saying it is clear. They're focusing on building schools. They're focusing on repairing, upgrading the clinics or the medical stations, right? The polyclinics. We saw what happened in Gove, where supplies are coming for the clinics, the polyclinics in the communities, so that they can attend to the needs of the people there health-wise, instead of putting the burden on the general hospital. You see the point? And for a poor person, that is very important, because a person with money can go to a private doctor, right? Go to a private hospital and so on. They can easily leave Grenada, go to the United States, go to Canada, go to the United Kingdom and so on, and get medical care. It's different. Totally different, you see? But we have to understand what NDC is actually doing. So yes, the NNP talk about the poor and the vulnerable, the poor and the vulnerable. But sometimes you ask yourself, but what did they do for the poor and the vulnerable? What did they do for these people? And sometimes you have to take some time and ponder on that, reflect on that. What did they really do in 23 years and a half for the poor and the vulnerable people? I am saying to you, it's time for us to look. Let's look at this thing in a very, open-minded way. Let's put it on the table. NNP, over and over, the poor and the vulnerable, the poor and the vulnerable. What have you done for them in the last 23 years and a half? And compared to the NDC, in 20 months, in 20 months, look at the amount of things that the NDC achieved, done for the poor and the vulnerable people in this country. Because the NDC don't want to keep you poor. The NNP, they wanted to keep you poor. Because the NNP believes that by you being poor, there's a great probability that you're going to vote for them and support them all the days of your life. Because look at the majority of people who support the NNP. They are poor people. They are poor and they are vulnerable. You look at the houses that they live in, the homes that they come from. You look at their attire. You look at their hygiene, right? Teeth, nails, hair, and other things like that. In terms of delinquency, in terms of the students, the children going to school, you look at those who are always in the courthouse and so on and so forth. Just check it out. It's not hard. Look at the statistics, and you will see those who are unemployed and, sit down there waiting for government to give them the poor relief assistance, and you can go on and on. Just look at it. It's a full package. The majority of people who support the NNP, they are poor and they are vulnerable, and they don't want to come out of poverty because the NNP make them believe that poverty is normal and that being in poverty is, for them, it's cool. But when you look at those hierarchy within NNP, you realize that they're rich. They're rich. But the majority of NNP supporters are poor, and a lot of them, they are illiterate. Can't read, cannot write, cannot reason. And that's the facts. That's the fact. Some people may not like it, but that's the reality. And look, I know what I'm telling you about. I know. I was an executive member of the NNP. The youngest executive member, so I'm not guessing this. So I know about the NNP, I know about the NDC. Nobody ain't telling me. I know. You hear me? So I'm saying to you, the majority of people who support the NNP, they are poor, vulnerable, and a lot of them, they are illiterate. You go and you look at where they live, the house, the condition of the house. You look at the amount of children they make. Because you see, when you're not educated, then you make a whole pile of children. You can't take care of them. You can't. Because to bring a child from birth to university or at least to college, it's about $300,000-$400,000. They just can't take care of these children. And the burden falls directly back on the state. Yep. Directly back on the state. And that's what it is. Whole pile of children. They're unemployed, single parent, because they would make with 2 or 3 different men, or maybe one, and they just abandon them. Single parent. How would they bring up 5, 6 children? Always in the courthouse, always in some trouble, the police station, always in some kind of thing like that. Always in some kind of, and it's just a cycle. They're not going to school, they're not this, they're not that. It's a whole pile of, and we can just go on and on. But the NNP never helped these people to come out of poverty, improve themselves, enhance themselves, and so on. They kept them there because they make them believe if NNP is not there, they can't eat, they can't drink, they can't clothe themselves, they can't shelter themselves, they can't survive. But how are they surviving now? Remember, that is what they make these people believe, Yeah? And that is why NNP out of power, and those MPs who won their seats for the NNP, they're telling these people they can't give them nothing. You tell them, go to the government MPs, go to these people. You don't see, not one initiative. They're not even doing nothing to help these people. Nothing at all. Because they're making these people believe that only in government they could do things. It's sad, it's sickening to say the least. But I am saying the NNP will talk about the poor and the vulnerable, but the NDC will act to get these people out of poverty, get them out of that vulnerable state to a place where they have a better or a decent standard of living, a better life. We want prosperity for you. We want betterment for you. And you have a caring government in power. It's different, totally different. And I gave you examples of how caring the NDC administration is compared to what the NNP used to do to you. The NNP used to prey on your vulnerability, take advantage of. And prey here again, I spell P-R-E-Y. All right? Prey, taking advantage of, exploiting, taking advantage, right? That's what they used to do. In my belief, over 20-something years. They never care about these people or cared about these people. No. And you just go into different communities. And if you look at the housing stock in that community and you see, dilapidated homes, rotten and all kind of stuff, you could just guess that it's NNP there, NNP that's living there. People who are not going to school, who are not working, a lot of them can't reason, and so NNP. You look at some of them, if they, by the time they don't reach close to you yet, but you smell them. Hygiene, their teeth, you look at the color, right? The clothes they wear. People might say, well, don't say that, but that's the reality. The NNP kept these people in that kind of state. They kept them there for a lot of years in that state, making them believe that this thing is normal, but it's not. It's not normal. No. A better life is what's normal. A good life. That's what's normal. But folks, I want to wish you all the best. Take good care. Have a wonderful day. I'll be back with you tonight